The letter did not look important. It was not written during a famous battle. It was not signed aboard a warship under enemy fire. It did not announce a great victory or a surrender. At first glance, it appeared to be just another piece of paper from the chaotic years after World War II. Yet decades later, historians would point to it as one of the most surprising documents connected to Admiral Chester W. Nimitz. The war was over. The guns were silent. Millions were dead. Entire cities had vanished beneath fire and rubble. And yet this simple document revealed something few people expected from the man who had commanded America's vast Pacific fleet. To understand why that letter mattered, you have to travel back to a moment when hatred between two nations seemed impossible to overcome. September 2nd, 1945. Tokyo Bay. The morning sky was gray as the battleship USS Missouri rested quietly on the water. Around her floated hundreds of Allied ships. Aircraft circled overhead. Sailors crowded every available deck. The largest war in human history was reaching its final chapter. At 9:02 a.m., representatives of Imperial Japan stepped forward to sign the surrender documents. Cameras clicked. Officers watched in silence. The moment lasted only minutes, but it marked the end of nearly 4 years of brutal fighting across the Pacific. Standing among the senior Allied commanders was Fleet Admiral Chester W. Nimitz. For many Americans, Nimitz was already a legend. He had taken command after the disaster at Pearl Harbor. He had overseen the victories at Midway, the Solomon Islands, the Marianas, and countless operations across the Pacific Ocean. Under his leadership, American naval power had pushed relentlessly toward Japan. Now the enemy had surrendered. Most people assumed Nimitz's story was finished. It was not. In many ways, his most surprising actions were still ahead. The Japan that surrendered in 1945 was almost unrecognizable. Tokyo had been devastated by firebombs. Hiroshima and Nagasaki had suffered atomic attacks. Transportation networks were damaged. Factories lay in ruins. Food shortages threatened millions. The Japanese people faced an uncertain future. Many feared revenge. For years, wartime propaganda had painted Americans as ruthless enemies. Rumors spread rapidly. Some civilians expected mass punishment. Others feared their culture would be erased. Nobody knew exactly what occupation would look like. Meanwhile, American forces entered a nation they had fought bitterly across the Pacific. The memories were fresh. Pearl Harbor, Bataan, Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Iwo Jima, Okinawa, the names alone carried enormous emotional weight. Many American servicemen had lost friends and family during the war. Anger remained strong. Under such circumstances, reconciliation seemed almost impossible. Yet history sometimes changes because of decisions made by a handful of individuals. One of those individuals was Chester Nimitz. Born in Fredericksburg, Texas in 1885, Nimitz was known for something unusual among senior military leaders. He rarely allowed emotion to control calm under pressure, thoughtful in decision-making. He preferred careful analysis over dramatic gestures. During the war, this quality had helped him repeatedly. After Pearl Harbor, America demanded immediate action. Nimitz instead focused on rebuilding strength. During the Battle of Midway in June 1942, his patience and planning helped produce one of the most decisive victories in naval history. Those same qualities would influence his actions after the war. In the months following Japan's surrender, General Douglas MacArthur became the supreme commander for the Allied powers and directed the occupation. But Nimitz remained one of the most respected American figures in Japan. His opinions mattered. His influence reached far beyond military operations. And then came an issue that many officials considered unimportant: an old battleship. At first glance, the vessel seemed like little more than scrap metal, yet it carried enormous symbolic value. The ship was Mikasa. Decades earlier, Mikasa had served as the flagship of Admiral Togo during the Russo-Japanese War. In 1905, at the Battle of Togo achieved one of history's most famous naval victories. Naval officers around the world studied that battle. Young American officers studied it too, including Chester Nimitz. By the end of World War II, Mikasa was in terrible condition. Years of neglect had left the vessel damaged and deteriorating. Parts of the ship had been stripped away. Some people believed it should simply disappear. After all, why preserve a symbol of Japanese military pride? Many would have supported such a decision. But Nimitz saw something different. He viewed naval history as something larger than national rivalry. He respected professional sailors, even those who had once been enemies. As occupation policies reshaped Japan, Nimitz learned about efforts to preserve. The more he considered the matter, the stronger his feelings became. Then came the letter. The document was not dramatic. It contained no threats, no military orders, no celebration of victory. Instead, it expressed support for restoring the old battleship. To some observers, the idea seemed strange. America had just defeated Japan after one of the bloodiest wars ever fought. Why would one of America's most famous admirals support preserving a symbol connected to Japanese naval history? The answer reveals something important about Nimitz. He understood that peace requires different thinking than war. Destroying an enemy's ability to fight is one challenge. Helping create stability afterward is another. Nimitz believed nations needed history. They needed memory. They needed symbols that connected generations. He recognized that preserving Mikasa was not about rebuilding Japanese militarism. It was about preserving heritage. That distinction mattered. The support of such a respected American commander carried enormous weight. Japanese naval veterans were deeply moved. Historians took notice. Officials who might have ignored the project suddenly paid attention. Over time, restoration efforts gained momentum. Eventually, Mikasa was preserved as a museum ship in Yokosuka. Visitors still walk its decks today. Many know the ship's story. Fewer know that one of the key supporters was the very American admiral who helped defeat Japan. The symbolism was powerful. Former enemies had found common ground through history. But the letter represented something even larger. It reflected a broader attitude that shaped post-war relations. Throughout history, victorious nations often sought humiliation as well as victory. They wanted defeated enemies to suffer. They wanted reminders of defeat to remain visible for generations. The 20th century offered many examples. Nimitz chose a different path. He believed professional respect could survive even after terrible conflict. He believed reconciliation required dignity. This approach did not erase the horrors of war. It did not excuse aggression. It did not ignore suffering. Instead, it acknowledged a difficult truth. Eventually, wars end. And when they do, someone must decide what comes next. In Japan, memories of Nimitz gradually became connected not only to wartime battles, but also to post-war respect. This surprised many Americans. After all, Nimitz had directed campaigns that brought Japan to defeat. His forces had moved steadily across the Pacific. Thousands of Japanese ships and aircraft had been destroyed under operations he supervised. Yet many Japanese observers remembered another side of him. They remembered fairness. They remembered professionalism. They remembered a leader who did not seek unnecessary humiliation. As the years passed, relations between the United States and Japan changed dramatically. The transformation was extraordinary. The bitter enemies of 1945 became close allies. Trade expanded. Diplomacy strengthened. Military cooperation developed. Cultural exchanges increased. By the 1950s and 1960s, a new relationship had emerged. No single person created that transformation. Many leaders contributed. MacArthur played a major role. Japanese political figures played major roles. Countless diplomats, officials, and citizens helped build trust. Yet Nimitz's actions fit perfectly within that larger story. His support for preserving historical heritage sent a message. Respect was possible. Former enemies did not have to remain enemies forever. That message resonated deeply in Japan. Years later, visitors to Mikasa encountered reminders of Nimitz's involvement. Japanese naval historians spoke of his support with appreciation. His reputation remained unusually positive for a commander who had led the campaign against Japan. That is why the letter matters. Not because of the paper itself, not because of the ink, not because it changed history overnight. It matters because it revealed when victory was complete, when revenge would have been easy, when nobody would have criticized him for turning away, Nimitz chose something different. He chose respect. That choice became part of his legacy. Today, when people remember Chester Nimitz, they often think first of Midway. They think of aircraft carriers, naval strategy, and the long Pacific campaign. Those achievements deserve their place in history. But another chapter deserves attention as well. The chapter that began after the surrender. The chapter that started when the shooting stopped. The chapter that revealed what kind of man he was when he no longer needed to prove anything. That is why Japan never forgot him. Not because he won the war, but because of what he did after winning it. And sometimes history remembers those decisions the longest.